Welcome back. President Trump and UK Prime Minister Starmer discussed their efforts to bring the war in Ukraine to an end today at the White House.
We're working very hard to get that war brought to an end. I think we've made a lot of progress, and I think it's moving along pretty rapidly.
We've discussed a plan today to reach a peace that is tough and fair. The UK is ready to put boots on the ground and planes in the air to support a deal, working together with our allies, because that is the only way that peace will last.
Daniel Freed joins me now here at the table to discuss this and a lot more. He's formerly served as the U.S. ambassador to Poland. Dan, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining us. The British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, also said that whatever the contours of the peace arrangement are, they cannot reward the aggressor. They cannot reward the invader. Words that President Trump so far has not used to describe this conflict or Vladimir Putin. Do you detect in that any distance, any significant strategic difference between the UK and the United States?
Within the four corners of Trump's plan to end the war, you could come out with a good deal. Now, the U.S. has stumbled over its own message this week. That weak UN General Assembly resolution and the inability of President Trump's people, even before Congress, to say who the invader is. Hint, it's Russia. Everybody knows it. But you could still see a decent outcome. Ceasefire in place and Ukrainian security. President Trump has gotten the British and French to agree in principle to put up forces. That's a very big deal without deployed U.S. forces. Trump ought to take the win.
Yeah.
The British and French would be fools, frankly, to go into Ukraine without some American backup. The Americans have said no troops on the ground. Okay, that means backup in the air, logistics, intelligence. That sounds like a package that could work. Now, Putin won't accept it. That's a whole other deal. But first, we have to come up with a strong package to make a peace sustainable.
And in the conversations in public today and earlier this week, in the contours of this yet to be signed, but we're expected to be signed tomorrow, U.S. and Ukrainian agreement about U.S. access to rare earth minerals in Ukraine, the president said that's a security guarantee for Ukraine by itself, because we'll be there. We'll be on the ground, digging, mining, and no one's going to attack Ukraine if we're there. Is that credible, plausible?
It's a contribution to Ukrainian security, and if you read the deal, it's kind of a sketch rather than a full deal, but it's a plus. I think the Ukrainians are right to sign it, but it doesn't substitute for real security. The president's exaggerating the impact. Do you think Putin is going to worry about going after Ukraine if there are some U.S. engineers and business people on the ground? Yeah.
You mean, and by yeah, you mean no.
That's exactly right. We need more serious security backing for Ukraine. There's a plan on the table which would be a real win for Trump. He's called for the Europeans to step up to do more to defend themselves. Now the Europeans are planning to do it. That's why Trump should take the win.
Speaking of that language, stepping up, Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, gave voice to some of that at the White House today. Let's listen.
Mr. President, in this new era, you're also right that Europe must step up. This year we'll be giving more military aid to Ukraine than ever. And just this week, I've set out how we're shouldering more of the security burden. We're already one of the biggest spenders in NATO, and now we're going much further.
This is a reflection of the Trump effect. It's sometimes hostile. It's sometimes very sharp-elbowed. It's not diplomatic in a traditional sense. But in this context, Dan, it appears to have gotten some results.
Trump is getting traction for his ideas. He's getting the Europeans to do something that 3-4 months ago seemed far-fetched.
And the Biden administration was not vocally demanding.
Well, Trump could succeed. And more power to him if he does, but he needs to close the deal. And that means backing up the Europeans. It means staring down Vladimir Putin, because once we have a plan, Putin's going to say no. You realize that. I think everybody does.
And more to that point, Dan, when the president was asked today, do you expect Vladimir Putin, if there is an agreement reached, to live up to his obligations? He said, sure, I think he will. Does that sound to you in any way harmfully naive?
Well, it could be harmfully naive, although one of the better people in Trump world immediately remarked that it's Trump's way of warning Putin not to mess around. Now, could be either one, but it's important that the administration stop giving Putin gifts like refusing to say that it was a Russian invasion and supporting weak UN resolutions that have us side with the world's dictators and our foes rather than our friends. But still, for all the criticisms, and it's been a pretty rough week, you could still end up with a decent enough American-European plan to back Ukrainian security. Trump likes to win. This could be a win, but we face some tests ahead.
Dan Fried, it's been a pleasure, sir. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.